Sophie had always believed that love could overcome any obstacle. When she married Daniel, she knew that he was charming, kind, and attentive. He had a smile that could light up any room, and she had fallen for it completely. Life seemed perfect at first. They moved into a small apartment in the city, full of excitement about the future and their plans to grow together. Sophie worked as a schoolteacher, and she loved her job. She enjoyed shaping young minds and found joy in the small victories of her students. Daniel, on the other hand, had recently lost his job at a local company due to downsizing. He told Sophie that he was looking for something new, but weeks turned into months, and months passed with no progress. At first, Sophie thought it was just a temporary problem. She believed Daniel would find a job soon, and she would support him during this difficult time. She tried to encourage him every day, reminding him of his skills and the potential he had. Daniel would smile and nod, promising that he was applying to jobs, but Sophie began to notice that his efforts were minimal. He would sometimes scroll on his phone for hours, watch television, or play video games instead of searching for work. Sophie tried not to judge him too harshly because she understood that job hunting could be frustrating and demoralizing. However, the reality started to weigh heavily on her. Their small savings were slowly disappearing, and bills began to pile up. The once cozy apartment started to feel tense, filled with silent arguments and worry. Sophie found herself picking up extra shifts at the school, tutoring students after hours, and even doing private lessons on weekends. She was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. Meanwhile, Daniel seemed content to wait for the right opportunity to appear. Sophie would gently suggest that he take temporary work, even if it was not his dream job, just to stay active and contribute. He would promise he would, but nothing ever changed. One afternoon, Sophie came home to find Daniel sitting on the couch, eating chips, and watching yet another television show. She had just finished tutoring a student who had struggled with math all week, and she was tired and frustrated. "Daniel," she said, trying to keep her voice calm, "we need to talk. You haven't applied to any jobs this week. What are you going to do?" Daniel looked at her and shrugged. "I'm thinking about it," he said casually. "I just need more time. Something will come up." Sophie felt a surge of anger, mixed with disappointment. "Daniel, we can't just sit and wait. We have bills to pay, and I can't do everything alone. I love you, but this isn't working. We need to act now." Daniel sighed and turned back to the television. "Sophie, I said I'm thinking. Stop stressing me out. I'll figure it out." Sophie stared at him, feeling a growing sense of hopelessness. She had hoped that love and patience could help Daniel find his motivation again, but she began to see a side of him that she had never truly noticed. It wasn't that he lacked talent or intelligence. He was smart, creative, and capable. The problem was not about skills, it was about attitude. He seemed to prefer comfort and ease over hard work and responsibility. Days turned into weeks, and the pattern continued. Sophie tried talking to him, encouraging him, even offering to help him update his resume or prepare for interviews, but nothing seemed to work. One evening, Sophie sat alone at the dining table, staring at the stack of unpaid bills. Her heart ached, not just for the financial strain, but for the man she had married. The person she had believed in and trusted seemed to have disappeared behind a mask of laziness and excuses. She wondered how she could continue living like this. Could she keep supporting someone who did not support himself? Could she keep loving someone who refused to act? That night, she confronted Daniel one more time. She tried to keep her voice steady, even though her emotions were raw. "Daniel, I can't do this anymore. I can't carry everything by myself. I love you, but I need you to help me. If nothing changes, I don't know if our marriage can survive." Daniel looked at her with surprise, perhaps for the first time realizing how serious she was. For a moment, he seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. "Sophie," he said softly, I didn't realize how much pressure you felt. I'll try harder, I promise." Sophie wanted to believe him, but she also knew that words were not enough. Actions mattered more. She wanted to see real change before she could feel secure in their life together. The next day, Sophie went to work as usual, hoping that Daniel would take her words seriously. She felt a mixture of sadness, fear, and determination. She loved him, but she also loved herself and her dreams. She could not let her life be paused indefinitely because of someone else's inaction. Over the next few days, Sophie noticed small changes. Daniel started waking up earlier, looking at job postings, and even attending an online workshop to improve his skills. It was not a complete transformation, but it was a start. Sophie felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps love, patience, and honest communication could spark the motivation he needed. But deep down, she also knew that if these efforts were short-lived, she might have to make the hardest decision of her life. Sophie realized that marriage was not just about love, it was about partnership, responsibility, and shared effort. She understood that true love sometimes required tough conversations, boundaries, and even letting go if the other person could not meet you halfway. That week marked the beginning of a new chapter in their marriage. The tension had not disappeared, and life was still challenging, but there was a glimmer of hope. Daniel had finally taken the first step, and Sophie decided to support him, but cautiously, with eyes wide open. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but she was determined to face it, one step at a time, with patience, courage, and clear expectations. Love was not always enough, but it could inspire change, and Sophie hoped that this change was only the beginning. After Sophie confronted Daniel about his lack of effort, the atmosphere in their apartment began to change, slowly but noticeably. At first, Daniel's attempts to improve his situation were small and hesitant. He would wake up earlier than usual, spend a few hours each day checking job listings, and occasionally work on his resume or cover letters. It was far from perfect, but Sophie noticed the effort, and it gave her hope. She understood that change would not happen overnight, and she was determined to support him, as long as he continued to show genuine commitment. Sophie decided to create a plan, not just for Daniel, but for both of them. She believed that structure could help him stay accountable and make progress. They sat together at the dining table one evening, with pens, notebooks, and a laptop ready. "Daniel," Sophie said gently, "I want to help you, but we need a plan. We can't just hope things will work out on their own. We need concrete steps." Daniel nodded, looking a little nervous but also eager. Sophie began by helping him list his skills, experiences, and interests. They talked about his strengths, from problem solving to communication, and identified areas that could benefit from additional training. They also discussed the types of jobs that might suit him, even if they were not his dream roles. Sophie suggested starting with temporary work or freelance opportunities to build momentum and confidence. Daniel agreed. "I think I've been afraid of failing," he admitted. "I wanted the perfect job, and I kept waiting for it to appear. But I see now that I need to start somewhere, even if it's not perfect." Sophie smiled, proud of his honesty. "Exactly," she said. "Progress is better than perfection. Every small step counts." Over the next few weeks, Daniel began taking concrete actions. He applied to multiple jobs each day, attended online workshops to improve his skills, and even volunteered at a local community center to gain experience. Sophie noticed a visible change in his demeanor. He seemed more confident, more motivated, and more engaged in their shared life. The tension that had previously filled their apartment started to ease. Sophie also realized that her own life had shifted. She was no longer carrying the entire burden of their household alone. While she still worked hard at her teaching job, the partnership she had been longing for was beginning to take shape. She felt a renewed sense of hope for their future. Despite these positive changes, challenges remained. Not every job application was successful, and Daniel faced rejections that made him question his abilities. Some days, he felt discouraged and frustrated. On those days, Sophie was there to encourage him, reminding him that setbacks were a normal part of life and that persistence was key. "Every no brings you closer to a yes," she would tell him. "Don't give up now. I believe in you." Slowly, Daniel began to internalize this mindset. He realized that success was not about waiting for the perfect opportunity but about creating opportunities through consistent effort and resilience. The small victories started to build up. He landed a part-time position at a small company, which allowed him to gain work experience and earn a modest income. It was not glamorous, but it was a step forward. The sense of accomplishment boosted his confidence and reinforced the value of hard work. Sophie and Daniel also began to communicate more openly about their goals and challenges. They shared their fears, frustrations, and hopes, creating a deeper emotional connection. Sophie understood that Daniel's previous lack of effort was not due to laziness but to fear and uncertainty. By addressing those underlying issues together, they strengthened their relationship and built a foundation of trust and mutual respect. As the months passed, Daniel's work ethic improved significantly. He began taking on additional responsibilities, learning new skills, and even networking with professionals in his field. Sophie noticed that he was no longer avoiding challenges but actively seeking growth opportunities. Their life together began to feel more balanced. Sophie no longer carried the weight of their household alone, and Daniel took pride in contributing to their shared life. Financially, they were still careful with their spending, but the stress of unpaid bills and mounting debt had decreased. The stability that Daniel's efforts brought allowed Sophie to focus on her own career and personal growth without feeling overwhelmed. Beyond the practical improvements, Sophie observed a transformation in Daniel's character. He became more self-aware, disciplined, and determined. He learned to value hard work and understood the importance of responsibility in a partnership. Sophie admired his resilience and willingness to change, and she felt grateful that they had faced these challenges together rather than letting them destroy their marriage. One evening, after a long day of work and applications, Daniel surprised Sophie by preparing dinner. It was a simple meal, but it was filled with thoughtfulness and care. Sophie felt a deep sense of appreciation and love. "Thank you," she said, smiling. "This means so much to me." Daniel looked at her with sincerity. "I know I have a lot to make up for, and I want to be the partner you deserve. I'm learning, and I promise I'll keep trying." Sophie reached out and held his hand. She realized that love alone was not enough to sustain a marriage, but love combined with effort, accountability, and support could create a strong and lasting bond. Their journey was far from over, but they were on the right path. By working together, setting goals, and holding each other accountable, they had found a way forward. Sophie felt a renewed sense of optimism about their future. She knew that life would always have challenges, but she also knew that they could face them as a team. The transformation in their relationship reminded her that patience, understanding, and communication were powerful tools in overcoming obstacles. In the weeks that followed, Daniel continued to improve professionally and personally. He took on more responsibilities at work, explored new career opportunities, and remained consistent in his efforts. Sophie continued to support him, offering guidance when needed but also allowing him to take ownership of his growth. Their bond deepened, built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. Looking back, Sophie realized that the difficult period of Daniel's unemployment had been a turning point for both of them. It had tested their patience, resilience, and love, but it had also provided an opportunity for growth and transformation. Daniel had learned the value of hard work, responsibility, and perseverance, while Sophie had learned the importance of setting boundaries, expressing her needs, and supporting her partner with both love and clarity. Together, they had navigated the storm and emerged stronger, more connected, and more determined to build a fulfilling life together. They had found a way forward, not just as individuals, but as a united team ready to face whatever challenges life might bring.